Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever walked away from a discussion where you said everything you needed to say? You articulated every single point absolutely perfectly, and yet somehow you still walked away feeling like you entirely lost. It is a universally frustrating experience, but today we're going to completely flip the script on how you handle those exact moments.
You know that exact feeling, right? It's that familiar tight knot in your throat when someone across from you, maybe they're a loud talker or a mocker or just someone who dominates the room, pushes their weight around with this arrogance disguised as confidence. Naturally, your immediate instinct is to fight back. You feel this desperate, burning urge to defend yourself, to explain your side, and prove them wrong. But what if doing exactly that is playing right into their hands?
Okay, let's dive into this. Because Friedrich Nietzsche, a thinker who is very often misunderstood, had a totally paradigm-shifting observation. He saw clearly that those who talk too much reveal too much. Those who feel the desperate need to convince others are already starting at a massive disadvantage. You see, true power isn't about having the loudest voice or the last word, it's actually found in the deliberate absence of words.
Section 1. The Trap of Herd Morality. This is where we break down the illusion of validation.
To understand why we feel so compelled to argue, we have to look at a myth society constantly feeds us, the idea that every conversation is a battlefield where the truth has to be defended tooth and nail. Herd morality is essentially the behavior of living entirely under the expectations of others. You're constantly seeking external validation. That frantic urge you feel to rebut or correct someone, it's actually a symptom of a fragile ego. It's an ego that confuses a simple disagreement with a deeply personal attack.
Let's actually compare these two mindsets. On one hand, you've got the fragile ego. It needs to convince, it constantly reacts, and it's trapped in this exhausting cycle of validation. Honestly, by feeling compelled to justify your position, you've already entered their game and lost. On the other hand, we have internal mastery. This is the grounded observer. True strength lies in being totally okay with being misunderstood and remaining completely unshaken by it.
Section 2. Enter the Übermensch, characterized by absolute self-control.
This brings us to a fascinating concept from Nietzsche. The Übermensch, or the overman, is a being who dominates their world not through brute force, but through pure internal mastery. For the Übermensch, silence is literally a language of authority. They don't win debates by shouting. While everyone else loses their temper and frantically tries to explain themselves, the Übermensch commands respect simply with a steady gaze. They turn their calm into this overwhelming presence that just completely disconcerts everyone else in the room.
Section 3. 4 Weapons of Silence. Now let's take this abstract philosophy and turn it into highly actionable psychological strategy. Weapon number 1, be silent when your will absolutely screams for a response. Listen, this requires brutal internal discipline. Everything inside of you is going to want to justify itself, but every single time you give in to that urge, you're proving that you are still under the control of others' opinions. When you withhold that response, you regain your autonomy.
True silence is born when you kill the need for their permission to exist. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the ultimate break from herd morality. You no longer need them to validate your truth.
Moving on to Weapon 2, surgical observation. While others get completely lost in their own explanations, you need to just listen. But you aren't listening to reply, right? You're listening like a hunter tracking prey. You are actively perceiving the hidden fears, the subtle contradictions, and the deep insecurities that they're desperately trying to disguise as arrogance.
Weapon 3 is the power of the pause. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of tension. Tension is power. By letting the silence last just a little bit longer than is comfortable, you completely shift the dynamic of the room in your favor.
When you hold that pause, you trigger something called an internal collapse in the other person. Think about it. When your expected reaction doesn't come, their mind rushes to fill that empty void. They start filling it with their own paranoia, their own assumptions, and their own fears. Without you lifting a single finger, their defenses simply crumble. Which brings us to Weapon 4. Embrace unpredictability. By mastering this actionable power of #silence is power, you become the gravitational center of the entire conversation. Because people no longer know what to expect from you, you completely strip them of their advantage. They become super cautious, carefully measuring their words, because you're no longer playing by their reactive rules.
Section 4. Breaking the manipulator. Let's look at the actual neuroscience behind why these weapons work so incredibly well.
It all comes down to the amygdala.
This is the brain's region responsible for fear and anxiety. When you deploy active, tense silence against toxic personalities, it triggers a state of high alert in your opponent's brain. The amygdala just lights up. Suddenly, they start projecting their own insecurities onto you, wondering, wait, are they judging me? Did they see right through my bluff?
And this brilliantly illustrates why silence is so devastating. It acts like an invisible blade cutting right through their social masks. Manipulators absolutely depend on your emotional reactions to stay in the game. They literally feed on that energy. So, when you deprive them of that reaction, the cycle breaks. The manipulator loses their footing and panics.
Section 5. Reclaiming your radical power through absolute responsibility.
Where does this all leave us? You have to understand that no one is coming to save you from your own submission. The radical responsibility for your life is entirely yours. You've got to take what you could call a terrifying leap. You must transition from a false, easily palatable life where you just try to keep the peace to a truly authentic one. Stop being a statistical cog who just conforms. Have the sheer courage to walk right through the discomfort of standing your ground in total silence.
Consider this hard-hitting psychological truth. The life organized around never disappointing anyone is a life where you are the one most consistently disappointed. When you constantly over-explain and over-accommodate, you are systematically overriding your own needs. The cost of that fake harmony is your own identity.
All right, let's bring this all together. First, you've got to stop seeking external validation and kill the herd morality. Second, adopt the mindset of the Übermensch, where self-control is your ultimate authority. Third, strategically deploy those 4 weapons of silence. Withhold your reaction, observe surgically, use the pause, and remain unpredictable. Remember, #silence is power. And finally, master your own presence. This paradigm shift isn't just about winning an argument. It's about fundamentally taking back your energy and your daily life.
If you are ready to start reigning with the power of your own presence, I want you to make a symbolic declaration, right here, right now. Say to yourself, I choose the silence that commands respect. Next time you feel that frantic urge to justify your existence to someone committed to misunderstanding you, remember that you hold the ultimate power. Are you going to continue to give your energy away, or will you let your silence speak volumes? Thank you for exploring this with me today on The Explainer.